interviewing today Mr. Lawrence Lawyer and his wife, and we're going to be talking a lot about the CCC and their participation in that. But we're not only going to talk about CCC, but we're going to talk about this local area in the first part of the century, the 1920s, the 1930s, well, right on up into the modern times. And these folks have a wealth of experience. We've got some photos here that I was asking about, and I've been trying to hold them off until we got our cameras rolling because I wanted to make sure and get this on tape. But now, the first picture, let me show it to Mr. Lawyer, and then we'll show it for the camera, because I want him to tell us who's in the picture.
That's her younger sister and Fannie, and she was your two cousins from Indianapolis, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you all were down just picnicking at the mill, it looks like.
Went down to the mill, driving around, not down the mill. They were from Indianapolis.
What would you say, about 1925?
No,
maybe?
24.
24. Yeah, I could see in the picture that we've got the stone piers,
Yeah.
so the flume's gone, but the mill looks like it's in pretty good condition.
No windows in it, and no doors or anything in it. The windows are all out, and the doors are all out.
Was there a floor in it?
Part of it.
Part of the floor.
Some of it. Some of it was. Some of the floor was rotted out, and it just joists showing in there. And of course, they took all them joists out and everything.
Okay. When they
put these joists in, they're creosoted. They're black and smell bad.
That's probably why they lasted.
Oh yeah, they last from now on.
When you started the work, did they basically? You were there when they first started working on the mill, or did you come a little bit
they
later?
had the mill. I started in spring of 31.
Okay, the mill was already
and they done the
going.
mill in 29. They actually started working out there in 29.
That was the Department of Engineering.
Yeah, and I started in spring of 31. And the first day I worked out there, me and another fellow started making those lamp posts. Went down along the rock fence there.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we was making.
Now, I thought those were a relatively new thing, but someone told me
Well, they may have been, I don't know how
that they had them back in the beginning.
But that was, they made out of yellow poplar. And they took them somewhere and they put the hole down through the middle of it.
And so there was electricity to operate them.
Back then, that's the only lights there were down there at that time.
Right.
There's no electricity they had down there, and just had lights. And they didn't have it in the mill then.
Okay.
No electric lights in the mill then.
But you were around when the Department of Engineering was working on the mill, so you kind of remember what that was.
Yeah.
Did they just strip everything out and start back over again?
Well, all that posts and stuff in there, I think they had to replace maybe one or two of those new, but outside that, they're original.
Okay, so most of the beams and all?
Beams, oh yeah, yeah.
How about the second and the third floor, all the beams going across?
I think they're all original.
My, isn't that incredible?
As I remember, there's only one post or maybe one beam or something down in the bottom floor had to be replaced.
And then they built the first wheel there, and then
They built the first wheel in, started in 32.
okay. Okay, so it was open that they didn't have it going in 1930.
No.
Okay.
Started the wheel in 32, and I was worked a couple of days on the wheel, and they took me over and put me on this stuff here.
Okay.
I built all that myself.
Now, you're talking about the wooden gears?
Yeah, I built all them myself. They took me off the wheel and put me on that.
Now, are these the ones that are still in use today?
Yeah, they're still in there working today.
My goodness. And you built them by hand, one by one?
Hand by hand. We had no power tools, no nothing.
My goodness. Now,
and no electric lights even.
Where's the little thing you built there?
Oh, the model you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
I was going to ask you about that in a
I
bit.
don't know where it's at. Bill probably know.
Yeah, I know where it's at. I'm going to try to get it out and get it on display.
Well, I built that mill and
now the gears. What did you use as a pattern to build these? Did you
used a blueprint.
Okay. Well,
on that little blueprint.
Nobody else could read it.
Where did you get the blueprint though?
They made them in that.
Okay. I was wondering, they said that they used the book by Oliver Evans,
Yeah.
The Young Miller and Millwright's
It's
Crime.
probably that, yeah.
And I was curious if,
Yeah,
now, I noticed that you put the auger on the top, which would have brought the corn down from upstairs. But now, that never has been done since the mill was restored. Did you just do that for display only?
oh, you mean that conveyor?
The conveyor? Yeah.
That's just to look at.
To look at, okay. I was gonna say, now, the original mill, that would have actually been
Yeah,
used.
yeah.
But,
It worked, but we just used it to look at.
for display purposes, okay.
Yeah, I built that too.
Oh, my, that's incredible
We
that
built
that's
the
all.
hopper for the help the corn feed down in there and.
Now, the wheel had to be rebuilt in '54. Was it just that the one they built in '32 was deteriorating?
We started in '53, fall of '53.
Okay. And so the old one was just given out?
It was up there from '32 to.
About 20, a little over 20 years.
A little over 22 years,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
I'm wondering, since that was the life of it in that first wheel, whether we're gonna have to replace our.
But it was all made out of oak, that first wheel was, and the shaft wasn't as good a material.
Mhm.
What I mean, it had a few bad places and cracked and one stuff and the other, and they had to make, when I built the new wheel, I had to make a new shaft and all.
Mhm. Okay.
And it's good material,
Yes, you can tell that.
but the old one had some flaws in it, it deteriorated.
Who else was involved in the building of the wheel?
Just one man, he's Mr. Baldwin, Roscoe Baldwin, he's deceased, heart trouble.
That was in the '50s?
That was in the '50s, yeah.
Okay, the second.
That was he died about a year after they made the wheel.
Okay, okay. Now, on the first wheel, that was before the CCC started.
Oh,
then,
yeah, they
in
didn't,
32.
or CC didn't start in '32.
Who was in charge of that wheel, or was on
Just the
the
part.
work team?
Mr. Lee, Lawrence Lee was a labor foreman out there, and
This is Kitten Lee.
with a bunch of blueprints and one stuff and another. Why they built off of that,
Uh-huh.
and they made a lot of mistakes. It was the wheels. The spokes set this way. They didn't allow the overlap on the outside rim. See, 2 inches there. See, and they didn't allow for that down here. And the wheel, the spokes actually set like this.
Oh.
And I asked old man Stout when he kind of asked me to see if I'd do that wheel. I said, "Have you got any blueprints?" He said, "Yeah, I got the ones I had before." I said, "Well, good. I know where all the bugs are."
But they went ahead and used it that way for 20-some years.
Yeah, I knew all the bugs were and everything, and they went ahead and used it. But when they ended up, they built the first wheel. They ended up they had to make a new section in there.
Mhm.
It was the one was too short. The regular one around, see,
Okay.
and
What did they do with all the stuff from the 1932 wheel? Did they just discard it? Or did they?
discarded it, yeah.
Okay, they didn't save any of that
No,
or
they
use it
didn't
then?
save nothing.
Second.
And they had to make a new piece for that new buckets and everything because it in Spacenet whoever done didn't know what he's doing, I guess. But
Yeah.
anyway, they had to make a new piece there, and when I built that, and the last piece come around to go in there, and I was scared to death.
My goodness.
We,
Those chairs over
we
there.
set the daggone thing up there.
Uh-huh.
I took a fist and hit it like that in 7 places.
Huh.
Those
Perfect.
chairs over there were the first chairs they had in the dining.
Them chairs out there, they're taking them out to burn them, and I
You're kidding.
happened to be working down there, and they broke off at the seat, the back was, see.
And they were in the Spring Mill Inn?
At the end, I said, "What are you gonna do with them?" He said, "Don't take my and burn them." And I said, "Can I have them?" He said, "Well, yeah." And I made new posts on each side, so
They're heavy.
Oh, yeah, they look it.
I made new posts on each side, see, and that was all I had to do.
And put the back on it?
Well, that back was a section there, see, all
Oh.
I had to do was bore the holes in the right place, and
Oh, so that's the original back?
that's the original back.
I've never seen any like that.
They had them out when they first started up out there.
My goodness. Well, back to the mill, now when they started in 32, they used the actual original burr stones from the
Yeah.
mill.
Yeah, they did.
Did they work all right? They were, my goodness, they were
They were
over 100 years old.
Yeah, they wore down. One of them was pretty thin. Of course, the top one had to be built up out of the cement.
Mm-hmm.
But they used a regular mill, or had color to sharpen them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Were they just laying there before they
It was,
restored it?
Yeah, they were
Ground?
just laying there outside the building.
Now, there's a couple of other stones that are still laying around. Do you remember where they came from, or there's a
Now,
couple
used to
of
be out there along the creek bank. I don't know whether they're still there or not.
A couple of them are. I
Are
don't
they?
know. Oh,
I picked up, went down to Blue River. Hardin, I believe where that place was. They had two stones down there and they gave them. That may be the ones out there on the
okay.
creek bank.
Yeah, okay.
And I went down in the truck and got those stones.
Well, of course, we've got about 6 inside the mill,
Yeah.
and then those in the creek bank. And
Now, the one that they are using now, the top stone, well, I guess both of them, they're using now, they got them from, I don't know where at, but they was brand new.
Okay, yeah.
And I had to unload them off the truck and in there and everything.
Well, now, when the lake was put in, there was an old mill that was the property of Timothy Hickson over in an area that the lake covers now. And Hickson was a farmer and owned a lot of that property and had his own mill. And I was just curious if maybe some of those stones came from over there where
Well,
they were
possible,
in
yeah.
the lake.
Yeah, Hickson, I knew one of the younger Hicksons,
Oh, you did?
Mill Hickson. He
Oh.
lived on East Main Street there in Mitchell. He did, and his wife both did.
And that was Timothy Hickson's son?
I don't know, but he was a Hickson. I mean, it probably was relation to
Well,
him.
he had 20 children, so.
Yeah. Well, they come to our church all the time, and
Uh-huh.
Hickson did. And I don't think, they didn't have any children.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, we've been doing some research on the Hicksons and trying to
Yeah.
find out just what happened to
Yeah.
their descendants, because a lot of them were buried in the Hamer Cemetery.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Came from the village originally.
Yeah, Mill Hickson, he lived on Main Street every year.
There were some that married into the Hawks family.
Yeah.
Carrie Bell Hickson that married it wasn't Lester Hawks. Lester Hawks was their son.
That's H-A-W-K.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's mostly Mitchell.
Oh, okay. I would say that's probably part of the same
Yeah.
thing. Well, I was wanting to ask about the village, what it looked like before they started the restoration. And did you grew up right in Mitchell, so you probably were around the.
Well, I've been around here since 1923, and she's been
It's
here
been a
all her
while.
life. She was raised right south of the
Uh-huh.
We
mill.
used to go down there and play.
When it was just abandoned. Now, what buildings were there back then?
I can tell you what building back there then.
Oh, not many.
The mill office, that's in the corner of the fence there,
Right.
and the one that sits up on there's got the cellar underneath of it.
Okay, the nursery.
Nursery,
Were there people living in the nursery then?
Yeah.
yeah. And it used to be the house that sat over there at the foot of the hill where you out on the old road. They moved it from right in there about where the gardens
Okay.
are now. It's a bungalow. They
That was-
moved it over at the foot of the hill.
The Lehigh House.
Yeah, where you go out, yeah. And then the two apothecary shop and the grocery store, or post office and grocery store was original. They were original.
Now, were they pretty badly deteriorated?
Well, not too bad. There's one of them was kind of the sill was rotted out and kind of. This, of course, is on posts, you know, and it's kind of down, and they wasn't level, so they leveled them, put new sills in and everything.
Now, do you remember if there was a chimney in either of those two buildings, or a stove, or anything like that? We've kind of wondered how they were heated.
You mean the drugstore and the?
Yeah.
I never seen any sign of anything.
They had fireplaces.
I've been in them before they was renewed.
Mm-hmm.
And now the house, the lower Hamer house, had two fireplaces standing up
Yeah.
there, and I built a house around the fireplaces.
Yeah, so they kind of gave you a guide on
Yeah.
where to build it. So the lower Hamer house by the 20s was gone. except
Well,
the
it was
foundation.
all gone, and the upper Hamer house is all gone. We wrote the upper Hamer house from east of Bedford called Pinhook Ridge.
Uh-huh,
It was originally called Crawford House.
okay.
And I have all that over from east of Bedford.
So it was the home of some Crawfords?
And it used to be, belonged to some Crawfords lived there.
Okay.
So that was all, practically all those, most of those logs are ash in that house. 7 inches thick, some of them pretty wide.
Ash.
Ash.
Yeah.
Most of the logs in that are ash.
Usually because poplar and
Yeah,
yellow
most of
poplar
them,
and
most
oak
of them poplar are walnut. A lot of them are walnut.
How about on the other side of the creek where the Granny White House and those are now? Was there anything over there or was that just woods?
That Granny White House was built in about the time they remodeled the mill. I didn't help on that.
Okay,
Now the Sheik's house there with the illuminated,
Uh-huh.
I helped build that.
okay. Now, when they moved those two, did they move the whole structure or did they take them apart
Oh, I took them apart, numbered them, put them back together.
on both of those?
Well,
They did an incredible job.
yeah,
I saw a picture of Granny White House when it was still in Leesville,
yeah,
and they did a perfect job.
yeah. Now that was built before I went out there. That must have been built about 29
Oh, okay,
or 30.
okay. Now, how about up on the hill behind the Granny White House, and you might not remember this, but it looks to me like there used to be a house that sat up there, and then there were some reports or legends that there were even a few graves on that hillside.
Yeah, there's a little cemetery right straight up from the Granny White House up over the hill.
Okay, do you have any idea who that was or what that was?
No, we've been up there twice, I think, for that place. Used to, a long time ago, they had a rail fence around it.
Oh, there was?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, I went looking for it, and I found a lot of old pieces of limestone that might have been tombstones at one time, but I couldn't find anything that looked like.
I don't think there was any name tombstones up there.
Oh, okay,
When I was up there, it was all just limestone rock, looked like field rock.
okay.
We went out to Donaldson Cave and went, come out of Twin Caves one
Yeah, we
night.
went through there one time, when I was working out there, a bunch of us. About
Somebody
six.
said, you didn't go through there at night. Well, it was,
It's dark, it's pitch in there
You
anyway.
mean you went all the way through?
All the way through.
You had to go underwater a place or two, didn't you?
You had to wait.
Well, yeah,
Had his
some
boots on and
places.
come clear up, almost top of it.
Goodness. Oh, yeah. Of course, it might not have been as bad as it is today, but there's quite a bit of water in there now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
I
lot.
wouldn't go through now. We went through, I think, how many were there? It's about 6 hours.
6 of us, I think. Most of them did now, I think, all but us. I think we're the only ones out of that bunch living.
My.
In fact, I know they are.
Now, did they do any work around the Donaldson Cave area? Those early days, the CCC, I mean.
Don't think so. On that, built the shelter house up on top of the hill there.
Okay, the
That was
Donaldson
built by CC boys.
picnic area. Now, when did you join the CCC?
I didn't belong to no CC.
Oh, you weren't a
I
part
was
of it?
transferred from the park
Uh-huh.
over to the foreman, carpenter foreman on the CC camp. I just transferred over there.
Oh, okay.
For a year appointment, just
Uh-huh.
1 year.
So you actually worked with the CCC,
I worked with
but
them,
you
yeah.
weren't a member of it?
Yeah, no, I wasn't a member of it,
Oh, okay.
just a foreman.
Okay, now I was,
They still meet every year, don't they?
Yeah, they meet out there every year in the Sycamore Shelter House down.
do you go to that meeting?
Oh, yeah, I go. I didn't go last year because I had a stroke,
I see.
paralytic stroke, just not too long before that.
Oh, okay, I see. So you actually worked for the park, and.
I worked for the the CZ department. They just want to pay me, and I was transferred from the park over to there.
What did you make doing that?
Made $150 a month.
150. So you made a lot more than the,
Oh, gosh,
the
yeah.
boys that were a part of it.
When I worked at the park, I only made 30 cents an hour. course, I
Well, it's got a little bit better.
Of course, when I built the water wheel, that's a different story.
Yeah.
I set my own price on that.
Right, right.
Yeah, I worked there 30 cents an hour.
Now, when you did the model of the village, now I've seen that, and that's in the inn right now being stored.
And,
Yeah, it's a
I
very
know.
safe place.
yeah,
But, and I'm trying to get some interest maybe where we can put that in schools and loan it to places to display for special events. But did you do that then?
30 cents an hour.
You were working 30 cents an hour, and
That was in 1933, probably part of it in 34.
who helped them there?
Well, there's an old Hungarian that helped me on building the wheel. He made them old shingles that goes on the roof. And I believe he built that little water wheel while I was laying that stone and all that stuff on there. And his name was Hogarth.
Still living.
Joe Hogarth. No, he wasn't. He was 50-something years old then. He wouldn't be living now.
Yeah.
And he was an old cabinet maker, casket maker from Hungary.
My.
He said he worked for a fellow over there, and he slept in a casket every night. Shaved his
Oh my.
They wouldn't let him sleep in the house. They just, his father just let him work for him, and
Isn't that something?
he was a real mechanic. The guy was a real mechanic.
Did they have very many cars around the CCC camp or the park camp? A lot of vehicles.
Not very many, no. Back at that time, we only had one Chevrolet truck to haul stuff, heavy ton truck, and one pickup truck. That's all the park owned. And they wasn't worth a hoot either one of them.
You baked potatoes for your dinner down there.
Yeah, we used Charlie Johnson. That's this other guy that you talked about a while ago. We used to wrap potatoes in tin foil. That's when I was working on that Model T in the mill there. I built that in the mill there.
Oh, you built that inside the mill?
Inside the mill.
Okay.
And in the wintertime. And we wrap our potatoes up in the foil and put them in the ashes at the end of the fireplace there.
Oh, goodness.
Boy, they were really,
Yeah.
baked potatoes really good.
Now, Charlie Johnson, tell me about him again. We talked about him a little while ago.
Charlie Johnson, I don't know where he came from, but he come to Campbellsburg in 1920 and started the grist mill there.
Okay.
And he had the first diesel engine that I ever seen. It was made like the old gasoline engines. On the flywheels on it were about, probably 5 feet or 6 up and down this way.
My goodness.
And that old thing go chug, chug. I had a 8-inch well casing for a exhaust pipe. Dad and I go out to Campbellsburg with Dad. I'd go up there and sit out there and watch that old thing in damp weather, of course. Blow smoke rings. Big smoke rings.
And it operated a regular grist mill for
Grist mill,
corn?
yeah. He had made flour and meal and everything there. And then he sold out to, I think Farm Bureau bought him out. And then I guess he was old enough to retire then. He just more or less worked out here after he retired.
Operating the
Charlie
spring
was
mill.
an awful nice man, mighty good man.
Right.
He died, didn't he?
Yeah, well, yeah, Charlie's been dead a long time.
But he was the first miller that you know of in the grist mill?
No, he
Since it was
didn't
restored.
run it the first year.
Oh, okay.
I run it the first year.
Oh, okay. Is it basically the same how we run it now as it was then?
About practically the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I run that the first year we run it.
Okay.
Because my grandfather was a grist mill man. He ground cornmeal on Saturday. Everybody brought cornmeal, neighbors all around. He had a little old upright steam engine and one cylinder upright steam engine, and he had a set of burrs about as big as that hassock there.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably like the ones we have
Stone
there
burrs,
in the
and
mill.
they set up this way, see?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen pictures of them.
Yeah, that's what they had. And they wasn't much bigger. They were probably 24 inch maybe,
Uh-huh.
but not any bigger than that.
Now, did it just grind corn, or did it grind wheat?
He ground corn, he ground a little bit of wheat, but of course it was graham flour when he got done with it. All the bran and everything in it.
Yeah.
He
I've
done,
been in a lot of parks, but Spring Mill was the nicest one
I think so.
that I've ever been in.
we ground some wheat during World War I.
Oh, really?
We couldn't get any flour then,
Uh-huh.
and we had a little few graham.
Probably a whole lot healthier than what you buy in
Little
the sack
graham
of
flour
orange
going on
flour.
with their others, but the government didn't know anything about it. They'd have swamped you if they'd known it.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
During World War restrictions then.
Oh, gosh, yeah. We allowed a pound of sugar a week.
Huh. What'd you have, ration tickets?
No, it didn't, he just allowed, I don't remember anything about tickets, but you just allowed that much, which back you didn't get down very often, but we lived 7 miles out there in the country, and then there's a huckster wagon come along every Tuesday.
What was that now? Like a peddler?
Peddler wagon had 3 horses to it, big horses,
Uh-huh.
and he had everything in that.
And what was it called, a huckster?
Huckster wagon, what they called it back then.
Right. And you could get pots and pans?
Didn't buy anything, he had everything, dress goods and food and coal oil, and you could sell chickens or eggs, they bought chicken or eggs, either one.
And then he probably in turn sold those in town.
You know, and they had a store at Smedley, Indiana, which is about 4 or 5 miles on the other side of Campbellsburg on 60 there. It's not much there anymore, but anyway, that's what they had.
Huh. It's fascinating.
Yeah, sure, a lot of things changed.
Now, how late or how long did you work around Spring Mill?
I put in the first time out there about 4 years. And then I went back to build the water wheel. I was out there about 3.5 years at that time. I didn't want to let loose that much, so I got the wheel down.
Who was the superintendent when they were doing that?
Well, we had 2 or 3. And right now I can't think of the name of them. One of them was named Richie. And I can't think of the other other name, I think. Name Lacey was one, was superintendent out there when I went out there in 32.
Okay.
Ed Lacey, Minneapolis. He was real nice and all.
Now, how about the early days of the park, the other buildings? Did they have workers in them that were like we do now? We've got a blacksmith and a weaver.
No.
They didn't have anyone like
Nothing
that?
in none of the buildings.
You just walk through and...
Walk through and seen what you could and guess the rest of it.
Yeah. They did have beds and things like that.
Yeah, they had furniture in them, but nobody in there to explain anything to you, or there had no demonstrations of any kind. And they didn't have a blacksmith shop at that time.
Yeah.
Have they got one now?
Yeah, we've got a blacksmith.
Where's it at now?
It's up there next to the carriage house,
Oh,
right up on the hill
yeah.
from the spring house.
Yeah.
Now, the spring house was built at that time.
Yeah, that spring house was there. I don't know how, well, that's, I imagine that's probably, that wall of that thing's probably original, I don't know.
It's
I
very
really don't know
likely.
if it was ever known out there.
Now, the fence is original that goes along the road.
Yeah, that's always been there.
Okay, so,
And those, the garden fence back there, what, is not original.
it's not. Was there
No.
any kind of fence there?
No, and that arch was in there. I built the wooden frame that they laid the stone in to make those arches.
Mine.
And a fellow named Fiddler lives, he's living yet, over at Booty,
Okay.
Claude Fiddler, and a fellow named Catfish Reynolds. They
Catfish.
laid all them fireplaces up,
Uh-huh.
and that stone for that fence,
Uh-huh.
and those arches.
But now, you said the fireplaces in the lower Hamer house are the original
That's
fireplaces?
original, yeah, I built
They
it.
didn't rebuild the fireplace?
No, and I could have done a little pointing up or something or another, but
Right.
other than that, that's about all they done.
Now, the thing that kind of surprises me about that house is the pictures I've got from the turn of the century, that house looked like it was in good shape. And I just wonder how it deteriorated so fast that by the 1920s, there was nothing left.
Didn't Houses live down there in one of those?
Well, they probably lived down in that,
They lived there.
Charlie Jeans lived down there in that bungalow. I was talking about, they moved over to
The Lehigh.
Lehigh. They had
Charlie Jean, a caretaker for
Charlie Jean
Lehigh.
and I don't know, some Klauses, I think, lived down there at one time.
The Klauses, now, did they live in the nursery?
I don't know.
There was some Bundys too that Frank
Yeah.
Hamer mentioned.
Frank Bundy.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked with him out at the park.
Okay.
Yeah, Frank was a nice guy.
And he lived in the,
He lived in one of them houses down there, but I don't know which place it was.
well, how about the rest of the area that the park is in now? Were there some other houses? I know that there was the Turley Schoolhouse at one
Yeah,
time.
right, she went to school there.
Oh, you went there?
She went to
Yeah.
school there.
Now, Frank Hamer's wife taught in that school.
Yeah.
Josephine. Marley.
Yeah, she was her teacher, as teacher.
Oh, isn't it something?
And Clarence Morris and I were in the only two in the fifth grade, and he got transferred to Caseyville. And I always had to know all the answers.
You mean you were the only fifth grade student in the school? That's something. Now, when was
They
that
should
torn
never
down?
torn that building down.
They should have never tore that down. Now, that's that, you know, with that old 60 coming down and goes down and makes a turn like this.
Okay,
Well, the entrance used to be the gate entrance there.
okay. Maybe they tore it down because they put the gate there?
And then the schoolhouse is set up on the bank, just the other side of the,
I don't know why they tore it down, but they
No,
shouldn't have.
Joyce in that, building out there, on the hill up there. The old, not the new one, but the old one. Is out of that old schoolhouse.
Okay.
Overhead Joyce in that building.
Which building now?
It would be the Middleman now, since they put that stone building in there. And it'd be the next, one, then the garage over here.
Okay.
That's up at the superintendent's house.
Okay, yeah, the service building.
Service building, I couldn't think of
They
that.
used the Turley Schoolhouse, Joyce.
Joyce in that building is coming out of the old Turley Schoolhouse.
Isn't that something? So it was a pretty good sized schoolhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have built that service building.
The old one?
Uh-huh.
Boy, it's
I have
stayed in
built
real
that.
good condition.
I have built a house up there where the superintendent lived too.
Mm. Now, there was no kind of structure there.
Yeah, there's a old up and downsizing house that Lawrence Lee lived in at the time that he was foreman out there.
Okay, so there was a house before the superintendent's
yeah,
house.
yeah.
Someone had mentioned that at one time James Lynn had built a house there, so I wonder if that's the house that Lawrence Lee moved into.
Could be,
Because when Lynn sold his cottage to George Donaldson,
yeah.
he just moved down the road a little ways
Yeah.
and built another house, and then I think he eventually ended up over there on that road to Lawrenceport. So, but that house was just tore down and the superintendent's built.
I our name of Billy Lynn made some clapboards for us for those buildings down in the
Okay.
Still House and some others. He was an old man then.
I bet that was his
Billy Lynn.
son, probably James Lynn's son.
Could be.
Huh.
And he's the one that showed me how to make clapboards. I can make them too.
Huh.
He's the one that learned me how.
Goodness. Well, now, when that superintendent's house was built, weren't they gonna try to air condition that with the cave?
There was
pipe up there?
some talk of that, but it never materialized. I guess the state was pretty tight back then with money and didn't have too much, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But they only charged 10 cents to get in the park then.
Mm-hmm.
And
$2.50 now, isn't it?
$2
$2
for a car, yeah.
$2 a
Yeah.
car.
Uh,
I can always buy pass every year.
Yeah, it's a bargain.
Yeah, $5.
That might be cheaper than the 10 cents was back then.
Yeah,
with
probably was.
The current inflation.
Yeah, see, they didn't have too big income out of that park back then. They should have really had more money then out of it.
Well, the original gatehouse then sat over where the Turley Schoolhouse
Yeah.
was. Now, when did they move that to where it's at now?
Well, they moved it from there down to the entrance of the old hill, the old road hill that goes, where the old road goes down in there. They had it right there, right at that road. See, and
Okay.
the road went down the hill to the mill.
Okay,
They had it there for a while.
okay,
And then it was several years before they put it out there where it's at now.
okay. So that was probably the 40s or 50s when it
Yeah.
was
Who
moved.
was that named for? Turley.
Oh, one of the Turleys, I mean, probably the Turley, one of the Turleys run the mill down there.
Yeah, the last owner of the mill was
That's
a
probably what
Turley.
the schoolhouse was named for.
Possibly he built it.
Well, there's always been a lot of Turleys around here for years and years, see, and so
Mhm.
it was probably named after some of the Turleys, maybe.
Well, there was also the Turley House that
Well,
was over.
that's set out east there.
Yeah.
Of, yeah, I remember it quite well. I remember some of the Turleys lived in it.
Okay, that was his daughters that lived there.
I don't know what generation of Turleys they were.
Well, there was also a Harrison homestead. Do you remember any? of
Oh,
those?
yeah, I know, Charlie Harrison had built a house out there for his material. He went down to Louisville and they sold out the buildings down there from Camp Taylor during World War One. Army Camp Taylor, he went down and bought some buildings and built that house out of it.
Use that material.
Yeah.
Right.
And after the park got it, well, they let termites use it.
And then just tore it down.
No, they didn't tear it down, termites used it.
Oh. Came down on its own.
Yeah.
Was there any other structures around the park that you remember besides those? There was at one time a big spring schoolhouse, but I think it sat outside of the park area, didn't it? Or do you even remember? It was a brick schoolhouse and church house. Okay, it must have already been gone before. Before then.
And then on that road well, you go down the railroad, used to be a road come in there come down past Memorial, Griswold Memorial down this way. And there's another road comes out this way, and then there's one goes down this way. There's one of them roads there that used to come out east of town here along the railroad.
Okay.
And Dalton's lived out there on that road, and
Okay, now these were the Daltons that operated the distillery at one time, or maybe their children.
well, that's probably some of the later ones, but anyway, let's see what, well, Dalton, his wife, well, I guess all four of the Daltons are buried out at Hamer Cemetery.
Yeah.
They got limestone headstones.
Yeah, there's several.
They're over in the northeast corner.
Right. There's
And
several there.
they lived out on that road out there.
Okay. Well, now, I was curious about where the Dalton family was living.
And he, this old man Dalton married an Indian. So this Dalton, that's younger Dalton, was part Indian.
Okay.
He was
Walter, you mean?
Walter, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, his mother was an Indian.
Well, going back to this Timothy Hickson, it appeared also his second wife was an Indian
Yeah.
from the Chattanooga, Tennessee area.
I didn't know that.
His first wife died, and then he
Yeah.
married another woman. So there must have been still several Indians around
Yeah,
the
there
area.
evidently was, because Walter was a mighty good man.
Mhm.
He was smart.
He hasn't been dead too
No,
long.
not too many years. Say 4, 5, 6. Time flies fast, afraid to say, but anyways, I'd say less than 10 years.
What-
His daughter lives in Metro.
His daughter lives on the way Main Street here in Metro.
Now, is her name Dalton?
Yeah, she never got married, did she?
I
No.
don't think so.
Fine.
She lives between 2nd and 3rd Street.
She would be interesting to talk to.
Yeah, she would. She did live in a trailer between 2nd and 3rd.
Well, I think she still lives there.
Probably does. 2nd and 3rd Street. I don't know where she lives at.
Let me ask you about some of the pictures I brought, and I think these are copies of ones that originally came from you. Now, the first one it looks like is a picture of the.
That's on the building the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is the bridge that the road goes over now.
Yeah.
Okay. Hope we can get a good shot of that.
That's right at the foot of the hill there.
Now, were you involved in?
No, I was involved in the dam down there, but I wasn't involved in the bridge.
Okay. So the bridge probably was built first and then the dam.
No, I think the old bridge is going after that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you have any idea which year it was that this was built?
I'd say about around 33.
So it was one of the first
So
things.
It was probably built before the dam was down there.
What kind of roads were there through the park before they started working on them?
Well, you remember the old hill and the way you go in, old hill you go in, down in, and the one you go out at?
Mm-hmm.
And road that goes past the superintendent's house.
Okay.
Comes out over there at the old Troy Schoolhouse place.
Okay.
And then the road over there, top of the hill out,
Mm-hmm.
go over here, and then one went across the railroad, and then one went around and come out here, and then come back past where Dalton talking about Dalton's live.
Yeah.
That come around and come in there.
So there were several roads even
That was all
before.
the roads I remember.
Okay, and then the CCC excavated and built
They
additional roads.
built that road around the hill there from the new bridge, and all that.
There's another shot of that bridge.
And they also built the road out up past, comes out now, your original road now, from the bridge on that hill there. They built that too.
Well, those roads sure had gravel on them.
Well,
I was gonna ask, were they paved or gravel?
They're just ordinary stone roads.
That's interesting. Thought I had a shot of the roads being built. Now, is that just?
Well, that's one of the, from the bridge around, goes around that way, or up to the old bathhouse, one of the.
Okay.
That's one of the.
Now, was the bathhouse built by the CCC?
Yeah.
Okay. They built the whole structure.
Yeah.
Did the WPA do anything in the park at all? Or do you remember?
I don't think so.
Was there even a WPA working in this area?
I don't think they might not have been a WPA at that time, that early, because the WPA come in about, well, I worked on a couple of WPA jobs, that is a non-WPA man, but
Just working for
when they
them.
built the water filtration plant out here in 1936,
And that was in Mitchell?
Moore Mitchell gets their water from.
Okay.
I helped build that, but I wasn't a WPA man.
Okay.
But they allowed 25% of the employees WPA. Was allowed 25% non-WPA men to work.
Okay.
Had to have somebody who knew what knew what they was doing.
Yeah.
And I also worked on the sewage disposal plant in
Okay.
'37.
Okay.
Thompson Construction Company put that up.
Yeah. Now, you don't know any of the WPA working with the CCC?
No,
Okay. So it was definitely a separate.
it was a separate thing, yeah.
Do you know what the difference was between the two?
Well, I don't know.
Was the WPA possibly more skilled or
Well, I
older
don't know.
men?
They, well, see, the WPA worked just married men and stuff like that, you know.
So they went home every night?
Yeah, and CC's had a camp, and it was all young people, see.
Okay.
Only 10%
Mhm.
local enrollees, they called them.
Mhm.
They were married men or something like that.
Mhm.
That old man, Bill Godey, worked for CC's. He lived on Grissom Avenue out there.
Mhm.
And he was a blacksmith and he was a carpenter.
Mhm.
And he worked on my detail. And I had to have all those thumb latches and hinges and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I knew he could make them, so I told him up at the main office up there, I said, would you take Bill and put him in the blacksmith shop and let him make all them hinges and all those thumb latches for.
Where was the blacksmith shop located
It
then?
was up there where the CC camp is.
Okay.
You know where the old CC camp was?
Yeah, where the service building area is?
No, that's the colored camp.
Oh, okay.
The other's back this way.
Okay, it's back over where Oak Ridge Shelter is now?
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay.
I've been building there since I was in there.
Yeah, okay.
But anyway, it's back this way. You go,
So at one time, there were both camps operating at the
yeah,
same
yeah,
time?
yeah.
Okay.
See, the one camp there, the white camp, you go straight back from the entrance of the old road going down the hill.
Mhm.
That's where it was at.
Okay, so that's Oak Ridge Shelter.
Right.
And that was company 1536?
Yeah, yeah.
And the black camp was company 1586.
I don't remember it.
Now, they weren't there very long, were they?
No, I think it was there about 2 years, I think.
Okay, so did you work with them at all?
They come in after I went out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went out in December '35. Went in January '35, went out in December '35.
So they came after 1935?
They come in there in '36 or '37.
Uh-huh. And then after they left their camp, what came of the buildings? Did
They sold them all, auctioned them off.
okay. So the white camp never went over to that service building area and used those facilities?
No.
Oh, okay.
The white camp was a permanent building camp. It wasn't section type.
Okay.
The colored camp was 10-foot section buildings, and
Mhm.
and, white camps were built permanent.
Okay, okay. Well, I was a little unclear about that. That really answered some questions.
Yeah, and the blacksmith shop was up at the camp.
Okay. And this fellow that was a blacksmith, did he also do a lot of the, he did the door latches and things in the village? Did he do a lot of the stuff at the inn? A lot of the early things at the inn were done by a blacksmith,
Not by him.
light fixtures and things. Yeah, there must have
Not
been
that I know
a
of.
different one. Was the CCC involved in building of the inn?
No,
It was just done by a construction company.
construction company out of Louisville.
Okay.
I used to know the name of it, forgot it now.
Wittenberg, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
But that was after you
Yeah.
left then.
Oh, yeah, that was in, 30, about 37.
Mhm. I've got a couple of pictures of the boys. Of course, I wouldn't want to go through and have you identify all of them, but I'm just kind of curious, looking at these guys and their faces. Most of them look like we're around the age of 20, is that right?
I imagine they were. They're too small for me to recognize them.
What do you remember about them?
They were good boys,
Mhm.
mighty good bunch of boys.
Did they,
I had about 15 work for me,
uh-huh.
and some of them turned out to be carpenters after they got out on, after they left the camp, they turned out to be carpenters,
Mhm.
and
Were they mostly local boys?
local boys. Well, no, not, some of them wasn't. They stayed here though. Some of them still here.
Uh-huh. Did you keep in touch with very many of them after they left?
No, the local ones around here. They was married here and stayed here.
Mm-hmm. What kind of activities did they do during the week?
Well, they had different things, girlfriends.
Now, they didn't come into camp though, did they?
No, boys come to town.
So someone had a car and they...
Yeah, they accumulated a few automobiles, and they was a pretty good bunch of boys, I'll say that. I had about 15 work for me, and they were all, I had, I think, two local enrollees.
Mhm.
Mr. Godey was one of them, and I got him to make the door latches and the hinges.
But now, he was older then.
Oh, yeah, he was rather old. He was I'd say he's in his 50s at that time.
Okay, okay. Were,
That was old me back then. But,
how old are you now, you
Teach
said?
school one year.
You taught school one year.
ended up at ours in high school.
Couldn't get anybody else.
They couldn't get nobody else, and I could do it.
Well, yeah, I'm sure
They
you
just
qualified.
disappointed me.
But those boys stopped in to see you a lot of times.
When I was in the hospital last December, several of them dropped in to see me.
My, oh, that's something. Now, did they have school classes at the CCC camp?
Oh, yeah, they had education advisor and regular building for,
And then they had a chaplain. So.
and that, this district chaplain, he was no, guy from Liverpool, England. He was, and I went down to, Charlestown before the war started. They were building a powder plant down there. That's in fall 40. And, ended up finally moving down there, and by God, the church preacher we went to was the old chaplain we had up here, district chaplain.
Isn't that something?
He was from Liverpool, England.
Right, but they didn't have a chaplain just for that camp?
Yeah.
Oh, they had one right
No,
in?
you mean, they had a building, for that, church and stuff, and, yeah, they had, chaplain was a
Mhm.
district
So
chaplain.
they had weekly church services?
Yeah, yeah. And, some of the camps had, colored, ministers,
Okay.
chaplains. See, after I got out of all that, in 36, no, 37, I started repairing CC camps.
Oh, okay.
I worked about 4 years on that.
You mean other ones around the area?
Traveled all over the state. I've been clear up to,
My.
one town any size in Indiana, that's Goshen. I got done close to it, but I never was at it.
Yeah, yeah, well.
Valparaiso, that was my favorite northern camp, though.
Valparaiso, why was it a favorite?
Yeah, they're just nice to you around there.
Uh-huh.
They all sure are all nice and
You
everything.
was at Peru a long time.
Well, I built a whole camp at Peru.
Peru, near
I
Kokomo.
built a whole camp. I was a big shot of the whole thing.
Right,
Talk about a handful now.
oh.
They wouldn't let you do any work though.
I didn't have time.
Were most of the camps around state parks, or were they around other things?
They was, there at Peru. I don't know exactly what they, all done around there.
Mhm.
I just don't know. I never did know.
So how many do you think Indiana had total?
Oh, gosh, yeah, well,
Huh?
I don't know any idea. I had a book on that, but I wrote somebody and then they never brought it back, so.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think about the program? Do you think it would work today?
Well, it'd be too expensive and they couldn't afford it.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, it's really, I think, a lot more involved than people really realize
Oh, yeah.
when you start
And
talking.
they done a lot of good too. I think they
Mhm.
did. Springdale wouldn't have been near that park it is now, it hadn't been the CC.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sure wouldn't.
They really made a difference at Spring Mill, and I think at all the
Oh.
parks.
All those roads and everything out there.
The thing that seems to impress me is everyone that I've ever talked to, there's
Thanks.
only good memories. There's only good things they have to say. I've not heard any of the negative.
Mm.
If there is any, I've not heard it yet.
I was up Peru, after I built that camp, I went back over the, maintenance garage burnt down. And they sent me back up there to build a new one. Of course, they sent the sections all in to put out. I was doing some concrete in there, and of course, the commanding officer was a white man. He was also from Goshen, Indiana, too. And the boys there make some concrete, just working like mad, see. And then he said, how in the heck do you get these boys to work? Said, I can't get anything out of them. I said, oh, you just don't know how to handle them. What I done, I'd have a smoke break once in a while.
Uh-huh.
Well, a couple packs of cigarette, Camel seal, put them down there and have a smoke break while the boys saw smoke see. And that's,
Yeah.
those boys really like me.
You knew how to, you knew how
I
to
knew how to
manage.
handle them. I said, oh, you just don't know how to handle them.
Goodness. Oh, that's fascinating. That's,
A lot of those, I met a lot of nice people when I was working on the CCC repair. Met an awful lot of nice people.
mhm.
Maybe he knows the man that you painted his glasses by.
Oh, he was a Catholic chaplain.
Oh,
Oh, really?
He was a wino.
Oh,
He was always getting drunk. The boys, he went to.
he was the chaplain?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, my.
All those Catholic chaplains were all lousy.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I can tell you a lot of bedtime stories on that guy.
Hey, you painted his glasses?
They got drunk and they didn't tell him if he didn't quit boozing around like that, he's gonna go blind. So they caught him asleep one night over in the officer's quarters. They took some shoe polish, painted his glasses, and turned all the lights out. Boy, it just scared the pants off him. I guess he did wake up.
Was this in Spring Mill or when they?
No, I was in Valparaiso.
Valparaiso.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Was it pretty well operated like a military
Yeah,
installation?
yeah, a whole lot. Yeah, they had reveille in the morning and.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, oh, yeah, the same as, he was in the Army camp.
What time did they get up and start?
Well, they started out working at 7 o'clock. They got up about 5:30.
My.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And did they have uniforms like the military?
Well, they had, most of them was, old World War I
Surplus?
surplus stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the military men, were they with the actual Army, or were they Army Reserves, or?
I don't know anyway, they were all Army men, but, I don't know whether they was, reserves or what they were. I really didn't know what they were.
Mhm.
But all of them They had called officers' quarters. They had a regular building for them, and education advisor and the officers all lived there. And I was up at Al Frisco while the education advisor lived in town, and he said, "Take my bedroom, because I can stay with my wife now."
Oh.
So
So their families lived
I was
in-
up there 10 weeks one time,
Yeah.
rehanging doors and first one thing and another.
So the educational advisor basically was a teacher that just
Yeah, he was a regular teacher.
taught regular classes.
Monon, Indiana, had one, he and I used to go fly fishing in the dredges is up there. Of course, Monon's up, Terre Haute. We go out in the dredges there after supper and fly fish.
So there was some free time to do other
Yeah.
stuff. What did the guys down here do in the evenings? Did they just come to Mitchell and walk, or were they allowed to do that?
Yeah, they all scattered out, and some of them stayed at home, I guess, but
So after, say, 5 o'clock, they were free to do
they
whatever
weren't
they
free to do
wanted?
anything, yeah. They get a pass out, they had to get a pass out, just like
Oh.
the Army did, but they was nice, much people.
Now, one thing I've been curious about all along is the park opened in 1930, but the CCC was there in 33 to 42. Did they interact with the public very much? Because there was a lot of public in the park.
No, they had the old hill they had to go down then, and most of the work was down beyond that, down around the bridge and all down in
So
there.
there wasn't much public
There
in
wasn't
that
much
area
up
then?
around the mill going on, because we had a fact all that all done.
Oh, okay.
The-
So the village was the first thing done?
Yeah, the village first thing done, all this other was down below that.
How about the boathouse? Now that was where the Sycamore Shelter is now?
Yeah. Yeah, I caught bass off of the pier out there, right, where we went to the middle of the street out there from that boathouse.
Huh. When did that change? Just gradually, or did
Gradually
they-
filled in, and the silt out the caves filled that all in there, and that, yeah, the water, I'd say 50 feet out in that boathouse was some piers run out there where you brought your boat in and tied up. They would walk out on this and untie your boat.
So it was pretty deep originally?
Yeah, I caught bass right off the end of the piers there.
Right. And probably by the 1950s, was it?
Yeah,
filled in
it
much?
started filling in. They just had to disband that. And they cleaned the lake out the last time they cleaned it out. I don't know how many years ago that's been, but anyway, they took all that dirt, filled that in, clear down where it quits off above the bridge there.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the lake.
So they did clean the lake out of it?
Yeah, they cleaned it out. That's been about 10 or 12 years ago.
It's filled back in pretty
Yeah,
fast.
it still needs doing it again, what it needs.
Yeah, it's that runoff
Yeah.
really creates a
See, there you
problem.
get a lot of silt out of that cave water. Well, that comes down through there, a lot of water too.
Oh, you don't believe that? You should have been there last week. It was flooded.
Yeah, I know.
It was really flooded. The picture we have here is the distillery. We touched on most of the village buildings, but there were a couple more that we didn't hit on, and I wanted to ask about. Now, the distillery, when you first went down there, was completely gone.
This is foundation around.
Just a foundation. Were there logs to it laying there?
Not just rocks.
Just
Rocks,
rocks?
foundation, there's old rough rocks.
And so was that built by the,
Park.
it was by
Park
the?
employees built that. I worked on it.
Okay. Okay. Where did the logs for that come from? Do you remember?
Just here and there, where we get them.
Okay.
We went down to Greene County and got some logs. And,
This might be a tough question, but in the original distillery, there was a thing that came from the flume into the distillery that brought water in.
yeah, they would be,
And
for the coils, yeah.
it seemed like I saw a photograph from the early days of the park.
We did, yeah.
Did they have that in the, when they first restored the distillery?
No, I never connected that.
Never did.
That's a 19-inch pipe runs from the cave down there in that box.
Mm-hmm.
And, no, that was never put on there.
So in the first flume, they also had the pipe inside the flume? Or did they
First
just?
flume was the wooden, the old flume, the original flume was all wood.
Uh-huh.
No pipe in it, but when they put that in there and, after we built the first water wheel, it was a 19-inch pipe.
Okay. Probably wasn't nearly as messy.
Well, it was less maintenance on it than it was about a trough.
Right.
When did they build a little chapel out there?
I don't know, that was after I left out there a long time.
The meeting house, I think, was
The meeting house.
76.
It was built somewhere, it's not too many years back.
Yeah.
They still have services out there every Sunday.
Yeah, every Sunday morning.
They say there's usually about 100 people that attend.
Very popular.
Yeah, it's very popular.
Yes, it is. Now, the tavern, was it also just a foundation, or was there any building left?
I don't know, that was built before I went down there. The tavern and Munson House
Mhm.
and the Granny White House was all built when I went down there.
Okay. Now, the tavern, did it have a salt box addition on the back? Some of the pictures I've seen show a building out the back of the tavern that's
Yeah.
not there now.
I don't know.
And I'd heard also that they actually sold food there in the early days.
I suppose it did, there's quite a few people travel around horseback.
Well, I mean, in the park even, back in the
Even
days of
in
the
the park, I
CCC.
think there's several people lived there around close there back at that time.
So they still sold food, kind of like a concession stand.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Now, how about the wood shop? There's a hat shop, actually.
Oh, the old hat shop, yeah, that's original.
That is
Yeah,
original?
that's original, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. That wasn't rebuilt. Gee.
My brother and my brother-in-law were out there one year, and I don't know which house
That's
they
over
were
the
in.
Munson House,
The what?
Munson House.
Munson house, they got got in bed.
Got in a little bed over there, you know,
And
people come in.
one woman said,
Thought
you
they was-
know,
Thought they was.
they look real, don't they?
They were real.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, they got in bed there, and they didn't think anybody was coming in.
Oh, my.
But they did.
Oh, my.
This woman said, you know, they look real, don't they?
Do you remember any of the early leaders like Guernsey, E.Y.
Oh,
Guernsey?
yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, what do you remember about him?
Well, he didn't see him, he didn't come down very often, but he would come down. You know, he was down here, about a year or so ago. Oh, what was that? No, that was Reese.
Reese,
Reese.
okay.
But I didn't get to talk to him.
Oh.
I was out at the hotel at that time, he was out there,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't get to talk to him. Yeah, well, I remember Mr. Guernsey.
Oh, now, of course, he was probably a little older then.
Oh, he was an old man then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he do a lot of interviews with people in the area? Or?
I don't know, he didn't see him very often, but he was.
He left early that day.
That's when Reese left early.
I mean, last time we was out there.
Yeah, that's Reese, yeah.
But Guernsey had basically finished most of his work, so far as writing the history book, that kind of thing, before you went there.
Yeah. But he come down once in a while, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. He would come down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dick Guernsey was a nice old man. I was first acquainted with him.
Mm-hmm.
He was a nice fellow.
What about the artifacts and the antiques and things? The beds, the furniture, and was that stuff there yet? Or what did they do?
Yeah, they had a lot, and they had an old man named Moore in Annapolis that done a lot of refinishing on those things all the time I worked out there.
Mhm.
And
Was it just scattered around in the buildings?
they had some of the houses furnished in like they have now,
Mhm.
same beds. And he worked on them, he had over there in the south end of the Granny White House, he worked on them in the wintertime in there,
Mm-hmm.
taking off the old finish and putting on a new finish. running a mower.
Hmm.
And he also, took people up at the museum upstairs
Mhm.
during the summertime.
Tours and things?
Tours, yeah, he's
Oh.
a tour guide for
Oh,
upstairs
okay.
there.
Okay. Did they, have fences around everything then?
No,
They didn't? You mean people could just go in and sit down in the chairs or
yeah,
pick things up?
no, they didn't have fences at all, go way up there.
Oh, my.
That was back in people's own, see, they go in there and act like human beings, but anymore you can't do that.
Did they take care of the stuff pretty well?
Yeah, yeah, there was nothing bothered or anything, there was, all the time I worked out there. They didn't put those fences around there till after I left out there.
My, that's amazing. Even after the 50s?
Well, I mean, the first time.
Oh, the first time you're
time. Yeah, I left out there in, 36, 35 last time I worked out there. Of course, that last year of that was CC death.
Hmm. Boy, that's something that had all that stuff down there.
Yeah, they didn't have any fences around anything back at that time. I don't know when they put them around there, as after I left.
How about the cemetery? Do you remember any work that was done on the cemetery during the 30s?
During the time I went out there, there wasn't anything done on the cemetery.
Mhm.
There's no fence out in front of it, there's no nothing, it was just, then they finally, I think along in, summers in the late 30s, they did put a rail fence with the rails, and the posts had holes in the rails went in like this, across the front,
You mean wooden rails?
wooden rails.
How about along the back sides, there are stone pillars? Do you ever notice those? I was curious if maybe they supported a fence or something.
Well, they had a wire fence around the back part of it at that time.
And it was connected to those stone posts?
Yeah, that was stone posts, they had a wire fence around it, but as far as doing anything in the cemetery,
How about the stones? Were a lot of them broken or?
I never knew of anybody doing any work down there at all,
Mhm.
other than just kind of mowing it once in a while,
Mhm.
about twice a year, a
Oh.
season.
Hmm.
But it was more or less, it wasn't,
There was about 3 people buried out there in the last few years.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
Who was that first one? You went to the funeral?
Priscilla
Oh, yeah.
Henshaw,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Her
she was a Hamer,
right, right.
and I went out there to, he was a Mason, I went out there with the Mason group,
Okay,
when he was buried.
okay. I see.
And then Walter Dalton was buried out there.
Yeah, Walter Dalton buried over there. He was, I guess Andy was the last one buried out there. Walter Dalton was the first, a little bit before him. I don't think it'd been anybody.
Walter Dalton was right before him.
And before him, yeah, several years, but,
Okay, yeah. Now, how about the Hamers? Do you remember any of them still alive? Oh, such as George Washington Hamer? or
no,
they were
those
already
are
gone?
all gone. The only ones I remember is,
Probably Uncle Frank Hamer. Remember
Uncle Frank Hamer.
Frank,
Uh,
our Frank's uncle.
Yeah, we always called him Uncle Frank. He lived in Bedford.
Uh-huh.
And I was doing work for a contractor over there, that was back in the 30s.
Mhm.
And he come around every once in a while, and he was also an uncle of the contractor I worked for.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he come around every once in a while. He was a fine old man.
Yeah.
And now, this one that's living in Mitchell now, that's Frank.
That's Frank, yeah. He's named after his uncle Frank. Lived at
His
Bedford.
father was Albert.
Yeah, Albert, yeah. Yeah, I knew him. And also, what was the other name? Two of those Hamer brothers, Albert and John Hamer's dad and Priscilla's father and Hugh Hamer's father.
Yeah. Well, Frank Hamer, he's very active.
Yeah, well, he was Albert. I believe he was Albert.
What is he, 90?
I expect he is. No, I don't know if he's that old or not.
Frank Hamer?
Yeah.
He's 94.
Is he?
Yeah, he was
Well, I
born in
knew he-
1896.
I knew he had to be older.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's 94.
He's brother to John Priscilla.
Yeah.
John, Priscilla, Frank, and George are still
Yeah,
living.
Georgie, yeah. That's right.
Georgie
Yeah,
Wilcox.
Yeah, I knew Georgie. Lives up east here.
She's not very well, though.
She hasn't seen her for a long time.
I saw her at a ladies' meeting in Orleans. I think your daughter-in-law or granddaughter-in-law
That's Priscilla,
was involved in the same.
probably.
Yeah, yeah.
We were up there too. John and I had what they had, a wedding anniversary.
50th wedding anniversary.
Yeah, we went up there then.
Yeah,
Well,
we've been up there twice to anniversary.
Yeah.
And 60th too.
So they used to live in Mitchell.
They live on North 8th Street in Mitchell.
yeah, they're nice folks.
Yeah.
I just looked at my watch and I thought we'd been going about a half hour, and we've been
You've
going
been
a
here
whole lot
2
longer
hours.
than
2 hours.
And so I don't want to wear out our welcome, because I do want to get back together with you in the park. We come to your house, now you come to ours.
Okay.
And I want to go around to a few buildings and ask you some things there, and we can work out a time to
Yeah, I'll be
do
glad
that.
to work with you anytime,
And,
because I don't have anything, I don't do nothing.
We always
You were
go
working
out
when we
there.
got here.
Christmas dinner.
Yeah. Well, I thought maybe I could get you all to come down with Sarah Hamilton and Stanley Bernecki and a couple other
Yeah.
people,
Oh.
and maybe everybody come down together.
Yeah, Stanley's in the outfit when I was in the
Yeah.
CC.
Well, I've not met him yet, but I've heard about
He
him.
drove pickup truck.
So I've heard a lot about
Stanley's
him.
a mighty fine man.
And I thought maybe I could get y'all together a little bit later in the
Yeah.
summer and at the park and
Yeah,
look
we'd
at some
be glad.
things. Well,
Yeah, if we own anything, I haven't got anything to do, so I don't do anything out here.
Well, you were planting tomatoes when we
Well,
arrived.
that's just a one-time thing, as soon as I get them done, I'll be doing anything.
Well, you'll have to weed them and pick them and water them.
Oh, yeah.
Don't have to water them the way this weather is.
Well, it'll turn off dry after a while, I'll have to water 'em, but I got a good sprinkler out there, and the water spigot right there behind him
Yeah,
on the wall.
yeah. Well, we appreciate y'all
Outside.
taking the time. I think we could sit and talk and talk and talk, because every time we open a new subject, I've got questions, and it seems like you have the answers that
You know,
I can't
I
find.
guess me and Frank's been around here longer than anybody that knows anything about the park.
Yeah, yeah, and you've stayed involved through the years, and I think that's important too.
Well, when you live as long as we have, you
You gotta
just
live with
grow
your
up with those
friends.
things.
You gotta live with most of your friends.
Yeah,
Most of ours out in the cemetery.
yeah,
That's right.
that's something. Well, we appreciate it.